there's a component or components of finding purpose that are extremely important. And I want to talk about how important these parts are because if you don't understand these parts, searching and searching for purpose is precisely what you'll end up doing. You'll just literally spend your hours and your days and your minutes in your life trying to find purpose when in reality, if you don't get some of these components, I don't even want to say right, but if you don't even understand these components, then you'll end up feeling very lost, very stuck. You'll have feelings of a lot of misalignment that turn up as symptoms in the body, like aches, pains, tension in the shoulders, migraines, sleepless nights, sometimes even anxiety. And I know for myself, when I didn't understand all these components, but I did really want to have a fulfilling life and a fulfilling career and have purpose. But when I didn't understand these components, I was left with a lot of physical symptoms that I wasn't even sure if I could control or how to control. So I just dealt with them, if that makes sense. Like I just ended up feeling like, well, this is just what it is. And I would do some things like search or Google how to deal with having too much on my calendar. I would Google how to manage my time better. And even when I talk to people about this kind of stuff, like, hey, what's going on in the world of work with you? And a lot of times I hear things like, yeah, I'm really stressed out. I don't even someone just told me today that they had 14 calls in a row and then the last call of the day they asked somebody to repeat something and then they were accused of not being engaged. So, there's all sorts of things and ways in which being out of a line, aka not having purpose in life, turn up for us. And I know based on my experience, when I didn't have the understanding of the components I'm about to talk about, I know that it really looked a certain way. And that way was a lot of anxiety. I would be really stressed and nervous come Sunday, heck, even Saturday night, it would start. And I know a lot of people are labeling that the Sunday night scaries these days. And it wasn't even scared. It was just like sort of bracing myself for what was to come in the week. And in addition to that, I had debilitating back pain. And when I say debilitating, I say that because not that I couldn't walk around and function, but it was really tough for me to function physically. I would be bear crawling up the stairs at night because my back hurt so bad. So for me and for a lot of other people that I talk to, how lack of purpose, lack of understanding the components that I'm about to talk about, and being totally misaligned or completely lost and not knowing who you are or what you're doing, or, this person you once knew is gone and you don't know how to get them back. That's the that's the space we're playing in right now. A lot of people feel this way, and a lot of people are walking around this earth just being a complete stress bomb at work. And then you come home and you're argumentative towards your spouse, or you're mad at your kids, or you don't have patience anymore for your kids because you just completely maxed out your day with lots and lots of phone calls, lots and lots of engagements during the day, just a lot going on. And then you get home and it's like you just can't. It's like you've got the laundry and you've got the dishes and you got to make dinner and you got to get the kids' homework done and you got to get their the rest of the week figured out. And mommy, can I do this? And mommy, can I do that? And it's just like you don't even have the patience for it because you've just maxed yourself out all day long. So these are the things that are going on. And it's the reason I want to talk about this. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily see that falling in line with what is my purpose. But for me, purpose equates to understanding your soul's desires and taking action on those things. And when we don't do that, or if we're out of line with what our soul wants or what our soul desires on a day to day basis, on the majority of our time, we're doing things that don't actually resonate with our soul, then we end up getting completely out of line and completely out of whack with who we are as people. And that shows up very symptomatically in our bodies. And that shows up in all the things I've already talked about: stress, anxiety, tension, headaches, migraines, over drinking, over consuming, numbing. Those are the symptoms that we end up having when we're just completely out of whack and out of line for with what we're, what we're supposed to do, or basically out of line and out of connection with ourselves. So I want to talk about that today and how it relates to the bigger picture of ensuring that we are doing work that really resonates with us and fulfilling our soul's desires, even outside of our workplace. And I want to talk about the components that we have to truly understand and get intimate with in order to be in a place that feels very right to us most of the time. And this is not to say that life isn't going to happen. In fact, what I'm talking about is ensuring that when life does happen, that it doesn't take the wind blowing the wrong direction to sort of knock us over or make us lose our patience or make us scream at our kids and then feel bad afterwards because we were just having a bad day and we didn't know how to handle it very well. And so we went home and we took it out on our kids, or we took it out on our spouse, or, what have you. So though the components that really matter in the grand scheme of things, and that really matter in understanding how to truly be ourselves and how to truly align with ourselves, and those components are mind, body, soul, and higher self. And this isn't something new. Mind, body, soul is something that lots of people talk about, and getting them all balanced and in line and getting them correct. But what I see and what I saw for myself when I was wildly out of whack with these things is I didn't truly understand what they meant. I didn't really truly understand how to connect with them. I didn't understand my role in that, which when I say my role, that equates to the higher self's role. Like I didn't understand how they all kind of coordinated or came together in one place. It was almost like everybody was siloed off. It was like, okay, my mind's over here, my body's over there, my soul's over there. And then I didn't even consider the whole higher self component of it. And so I'm going to go through each one as it relates to aligning with yourself, trying to alleviate some of those symptoms, not have a day to day experience where you feel very overwhelmed, very stressed, impatient, I angry, right? Anger is a big emotion that comes through when we're wildly out of whack. So I'm going to talk about those components and how they all kind of get together and make up our day to day experiences, with whether we're in alignment or whether we're out of alignment, whether we're living our purpose or whether we're not living our purpose. And the place I'm going to start is our higher self, because if I containerize this for you, if I really put this kind of in like boxes so we can understand it really well, it kind of starts at the top of the org chart, right? Like the higher self is the CEO or the queen or the mom, however it resonates with you, right? Is like you're the top of the org chart. Your higher self is the top of the org chart. And the importance of the higher self is being able to rise above the body, rise above the mind, rise above the soul. And I call it the CEO or the mom or the queen because we have to see something in our life as the controller, as the person that has the ability to stand above all these things, see how they're all working together, see when one's out of whack, fix it. Okay, we got you back on track. Okay, now you're out of whack. Let's get you back on track. And if we don't have a aspect in our life, or we don't have a role in our life that can do that, then it's as if like mind, body, soul turns into a bunch of kids on a soccer field running around trying to play together and make it work, but nobody's giving them direction. I mean, could you even imagine? it's bad enough that little kids try to go onto a soccer field and run around and they're chasing the ball, right? That's just like kids just kind of chasing the ball. And if absolutely nobody told them what to do, everybody would just go chase the ball and it would be complete chaos. It already is a little chaotic, and I would say that life is that way. It's already kind of chaotic. And so if you have nobody sort of above all of that, managing it, directing traffic, understanding the bigger picture, then we have like really just a lot of chaos going on and not controlled chaos. And so when I talk about the higher self, that's what I mean. The CEO, the one in charge, the top of the org chart, the mom in charge of the household, or the dad in charge of the household, or the king or the queen, right? So when I talk about your higher self, just sort of picture yourself sort of above everything, that you can see it all, so that you can help manage every component of what makes yourself up, so that you have a role that is played out in understanding how to sort of manage each other component of what makes up you. And when you can understand all of that, then you have the better ability to know what you need at whatever given moment. You know who's kind of pulling the strings of the puppet, if you will, who's creating chaos, who's unhappy, who's sad, who needs a little attention, who's aching, who's paining. And then you can be at kind of the higher level, figuring out who needs what and addressing it, so that you don't get totally out of whack in your life. Because again, life is life. Things are going to happen. Accidents are going to happen. Diseases are going to happen. People are going to stress us out. People are going to break up. Divorces are going to happen. I mean, life just happens. And so you have to have this sort of person in charge of all of it to know how each component is reacting, and having someone who really knows each component really, really well, so that you can quickly get that component back on track when it gets out of whack or out of alignment. So then you have a better, just a better experience in life, really. And so the higher self's job, or the person at the top, the org chart, the CEO, the king, the queen, the mom or the dad, their job of the world of self is to be at this higher level, or sort of on top of the house, or on top of the building, whatever you want to call it, and see each and every component as they are and how they're interacting with one another. So, for example, when I have something challenging happen to me, my mind will be defensive, because there's something, maybe somebody said something rude to me, or maybe somebody treated me poorly. Like, okay, let's say I go into the coffee shop and someone's in a bad mood and they basically throw my coffee at me. I could take that, and my mind and my ego will be offended and want to fight back and be like, what's your problem? And then my soul's feelings will be hurt, because my soul will be like, what did I do to that person? I didn't do anything to that person. So there will be these emotions that come up, or that are like kind of childish, right? Like, my feelings just got hurt. And then the mind will want to defend all of that. And then the body will tense up and kind of get ready for battle, even though it's not really a battle, but everybody else is seeing it as sort of an offense, or a targeted thing that just happened. And so at the higher self, you've got to see all of that happening and control the chaos that's ensuing when that moment hits, where someone at the coffee shop was in a bad mood and they basically like threw my coffee onto the counter. So if you don't have that higher self control, or that higher self observation, then everybody will just start like setting their fireworks off, right? The body will get really tense. The mind will be like, oh, I want to fight this person and tell him off, and tell him, be like, what's your problem? And the soul will start getting really emotional, and the fireworks will start going off there. And so everybody is just on high alert. And if you don't have the higher self perspective to go, hey guys, it's okay, that person's just having a bad day. It's not about us. We're fine. We're safe. I love all of you. Don't worry about it. There's no reason to act out here. If you don't have that like higher self interception, then to left to their own devices, the mind, body, and soul will literally start going haywire. Will literally fireworks off. And then that creates a whole nother cascading of issues, of drama, of emotions. Because if you do take action, let's just say the ego wins in that moment, the higher self doesn't have any sort of interjection, then you could start mouthing off to that person. Hey, what's your problem, buddy? Why'd you throw my coffee at me? And then that person says, go screw yourself, or whatever. So now there's an altercation. And if I really want to take it to an extreme level, I could say the altercation could then turn into somebody calling the cops because, oh my God, now these people are arguing and fighting and everybody in this space feels unsafe now. So you see how if you don't have an interception, you could create a lot more chaos and a cascading effect. Or what a lot of people do is walk out of the coffee shop and they're pissed and they're like, I should have told that person off. And then the 20-minute ride to work, you're pissed off and you're thinking about it and you're playing it over and over in your head and the ego wants to win and the ego wants to have said something. And then you get to work and Bob says something wrong to you and then you're like, Bob, leave me alone, right? I just got to work. Can I just sit at my desk and have a minute? And then Bob's like, geez, I didn't mean to make that person mad. So again, cascading effect can happen. And so you really want to nip it in the bud, if you will. And the higher self's job is to say, okay, guys, listen, we know that that person was not very nice to us. We're safe. It means nothing about you. To the soul, you have to console the soul. I love you. Don't worry about it. Ego's just mad. Mind is just mad. And the mind, you have to say, hey, listen, I appreciate you like wanting to buck up to that person and tell them off, but no need. We're good. I love you. We don't need any of that. So then you can almost like console yourself and calm yourself down, bring yourself back down to earth instead of letting it pile up and pile up and pile up. And then you get to work and you take it out on Bob. And then Bob takes it out on Sam. And then Sam takes it out on Angie. You see how this is like a cascading effect. So we're kind of stopping it before it gets started and we get everybody back on track because human nature is human nature. And it's really difficult to just not have those experiences. There's very few people could have that experience and have it just not even influence them at all. And I love those people, right? Those are probably like very enlightened people or very numbed and disconnected people. That's probably possible too. But there are those people out there that just not let it bother them. Nothing would happen. But most of us, if somebody's rude to us blatantly, especially when we're paying for something, if somebody's blatantly rude to us, there's a chance we're going to have a response and a reaction in our body, in our mind, and in our soul. And the higher self job is to get everybody back in order and straightened out before that turns into a bigger problem out in the world or at the workplace or at another store that you stop to. And so the higher self's job is to really take control of the situation and get everybody back in line. So the higher self sees it from a higher perspective, helps control the situation, and helps get everybody back in line. I could go on about different examples of this, but that's effectively the big picture of the higher self. Then the other three components are mind, body, and soul. And I'll start with mind just because it's in the order. And the mind is a very complex component of our day to day, right? The mind has some very automated things it does to keep us alive. And the important thing with the mind is you have to understand that it has some very natural tendencies. And the tendency is to almost always have the common denominator, I keep you alive. And so when it's triggered into doing that outside of an automatic system, like breathing, keeping the blood circulating in the body, those kind of things, hormone balances, if it gets triggered into an extra task, like, hey, I want to start exercising. Okay, its immediate reaction, and you need to know this, its immediate reaction is to send signals to the body that something is changing, giddy up, we're going into battle. And I know that sounds like really extreme, but if we don't think about it in the extremeness, then we almost underplay it and underestimate it. And when we're underestimating it, then we don't know how to control it or work it so that it gives us advantages instead of disadvantages. I literally read in a book the other day called The Source, and it's a woman who's, I think she's an MD, PhD that wrote it. And she's talking about how when we change something, the mind literally sends stress signals to the body so that the body understand what's about to go through. And it almost like gets it to try to stop doing that thing because change is worrisome to the mind. Change is a threat to the mind. And so it's really important to understand, especially at your higher self, that you can almost anticipate problems with the mind when you change something, when it's challenged, when there's a trauma that's been triggered, when there's a negative subconscious thought that's been triggered, like I'm not worthy. That if that I'm not worthy sits in the back of the subconscious mind and somebody makes us feel not worthy, there will be a rapid response to we have to get even. That person can't make us feel small. And so when we think about the mind's role in this little, not even like 4 person component of, or four four-legged chair, I'll call it. Yeah, four-legged chair is probably a good thing. The mind, body, soul, and higher self. When we think about the mind's job, its natural tendency is to keep us safe, keep us safe, keep us safe. And we have to understand that. And that relates to purpose because if you truly desire something, if you're listening to your soul and that desire is different than what the mind is used to doing, and I'll keep with the exercising. If you're like, if the soul's like, I would really love to just feel more vibrant and light and alive. And so that leads you to start hiking more or start moving your body more. If that is different than what you have recently experienced within probably the last month, 4 months, 6 months, years, 10 years, whatever, depending on how long it is, you have to understand that the mind will literally send stress signals to the body to not do that thing because it's different than what you've always done. And if you don't understand that and you don't anticipate that, you're going to try to do something better for yourself that the soul desires, and you're trying to execute on that, and you're going to have to kind of go face to face or toe to toe with your mind and get your mind on board, because if you don't, you fail. And then what happens? Then the mind's really aggressive. See, I told you not to do that. You're so stupid for trying to try something different. You want to be in shape. Well, that's not happening because you're a sloth. You're lazy. You can't do this. And so if you don't understand how the mind kind of operates and functions basic on a baseline, like it's for survival, then when you try to go change something and make your life better or fulfill your soul's desires, which AKA is your purpose in life, you won't get over that hump of trying to control the mind, basically. And another really great example of this is this past year, I had one of my very first speaking engagements. And boy, did my mind rebel. My mind sent so many stress signals through my body that this is dangerous. You'll be up in front of people. What if you sound stupid? There's people in this audience that you know. What if they go tell other people how terrible you are? This is different. This is different. It basically is like, this is different. This is different. This is different. I want it to stop. And if I listen to that part of me instead of the soul part of me that loved it and enjoyed it and loved giving kind of a little mini keynote, then I wouldn't be able to move forward as a speaker, which is something that I really want to do. And I have to sort of overcome the resistance that the mind is going to give me in that moment in order to fulfill my soul's desires, which is to be a speaker. And if I didn't know how to do that, and I wasn't my higher self, and I didn't see how all the 3 components work together to fulfill my purpose, then I'd get stuck and be like, well, that was my bind, my body was really stressed out. I had a lot of fireworks went off in my body in that moment. Then I would just shut it down and never do it again. And then my soul would be like, that stinks. I really wanted to do that speaker stuff. So we really have to understand that the mind is foundationally trying to keep us safe, and then it's kind of partnered with a lot of ego stuff where it attaches itself to identity. And the reason it does that is, again, to keep you safe, because if it can predict, it knows what it is, then it will keep you safe and out of harm. But if it doesn't know what to expect, then it feels very like like it's in the danger zone, and then it'll revolt and react and send stress signals to your body to shut things down and not do those things. So very important to understand the mind's role in the bigger picture when it comes to purpose. Body. So body, I just love the body's role when it comes to finding purpose, because the body is a place that just has the ability to really communicate with us. It just can say things to us that no body, no other person, no other expert can really get to the bottom of. Our body is such a beautiful tool and a beautiful microphone for what our soul wants. And when we're wildly out of alignment, the body will just tell us all about it. The body will give us anxiety. The body will give us sleepless nights. The body will give us tension headaches. The body will give us migraines. The body will feel not at ease, disease, right? So the body has this ability to really give us extreme communication when we're out of alignment. And when we're out of alignment, I'd argue that we're not fulfilling our soul's desires, therefore, we're not fulfilling our purpose. And so it's really important to understand that our higher self looks at our body and can see these things that are happening chronically and go, okay, something's really off here. I need to pay attention and understand what's off base because my body is really telling me all about it. So that's the body part. And then the soul is not necessarily the driver, because the higher self always has to be the driver, but the soul's in the passenger seat and everybody else is in the back seat. And the soul is where we can really understand what our purpose is, because our soul will communicate through our emotions, and our soul will really bring forth what it really wants in this physical life and wants to accomplish, wants to feel, wants to experience, wants to have relation with, wants to just be everything it wants to be and what it came here to do. And our soul is kind of hierarchy and org charty. It's the direct report to the higher self. And the other folks are lower on the org chart, essentially. And I don't mean that like we should just supersede everybody and everything, but the reality is kind of keeping everything in balance at the end of the day. But our soul is really beautiful in the part of our purpose, because our soul is what drives our purpose. Our soul is what we came here to do. Our soul decides what we like, what we dislike, what our desires are. And so understanding how to communicate with your soul is really important in the grand scheme of purpose and finding purpose and being in alignment with ourselves. And we do that with understanding where our emotions are. And so for example, I'll go back to the speaking gig that I did. When I talked about that, I talked about how I could really connect with myself because I was so excited and had so much fun, and I was so amped up after that event. And that is really connecting and understanding that you are doing what the soul wants. And even though the body was a little stressed out because it was like, okay, this is different, and the mind was sending signals like, this is different, shut it down, the soul was excited and amped up and had a lot of fun and a lot of smiles and a lot of excitement. And it's really important to know that the emotions that came from my soul during that speaking engagement were things that tell me at my higher self, I like this. Can we do more of this? And so when you put when you put the three together, you understand how they feed up into one another and how that allows the higher self to really say, okay, I get it. I know what we want. And it also allows us at the higher self to understand who needs what at what point. So we always have to have the ability to say, okay, body, I'm hearing you. You have anxiety. Talk to me. What's going on? And then the soul kind of pipes in and is like, yeah, well, like I'm just really worried because the mind is telling us we're going to fail at this new thing and we're going to fail at this change. And now I'm worried. And I just thought I wanted to be a little bit more in shape. And I thought that would be a lot of fun to go to the gym or do more hiking. But now the body's like really anxious because the mind's like having its fit because it's something different. And so your higher self has to have the ability to say, okay, listen, guys, soul, I know you really want to work out. I know you want to get into a regime because I know you really want to work out. I know you really want to get into a routine of working out because that feels really good to you. And mine, listen, I know this is different for you, but we're gonna try this, okay? So just have your fit. It's okay. Tell me about it. Tell me how you don't want to change and you want something to be the same always, and let it work itself out. And then you just have to kind of talk everybody through this process. It's no different than if you literally had three children in your vicinity and and constantly trying to manage them. And by the way, this does get a little bit easier because the more you do things, the more you do things, the less reaction you get from everybody. But it's kind of a lifelong journey of your higher self understanding who's doing what at any given moment and understanding what they need in order to get them back on track so your life's not completely haywire. So you can ground and center back into yourself so you can really feel the lightness and the joy and the happiness and the peacefulness. You're not always like kind of at this place of a lot of angst. So at the at the point where you start doing that less and less and less is amazing because that means you're kind of training everybody how to act. It's like you're raising your babies basically. And if we put it in the form of like a CEO, you finally got your managers really managing and doing well and understanding the systems and the processes, and they're humming a little bit better than when they first started with you, that storming phase. So when you start doing this work of understanding how your mind, body, soul, and higher self play into and are containerized into the bigger picture of purpose and life, then the easier your life gets. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. But at first it's like, oh my God, like my body is out of whack, my mind's going crazy, my mind won't shut up, it's just running million miles per hour on any given moment. I'm trying to control the mind. So it's going to feel a little whack-a-mole to some degree at first. But the more you do it, the more your soul knows she's safe to express herself, and knowing that you'll take those desires and execute on them, regardless if the mind doesn't want change, regardless if the body gets a little stressed out because the mind is sending stress signals to say, oh my gosh, change, 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 get ready, get ready, get ready. So it's this whole kind of environment that you're constantly managing. And after things kind of get sprouted and they kind of go through some cycles of different seasons, and they start really understanding who does what and why, it gets smoother and smoother and smoother. But when you first start doing this work and understanding that there's roles to be played by mind, body, and soul, when you first start doing that, it is going to feel a little chaotic. It's going to feel like you're playing whack-a-mole a lot. But if you just keep doing it, it gets easier and easier, and life feels a lot less forced. Life feels a lot more smooth. Life feels a lot more at ease versus diseased. And so this work that you're doing, yes, it's about finding purpose, but ultimately, in order to get there, you have to have an understanding of the environment you're in. You have to understand that there's a higher self, there's a mind, there's a body, and there's a soul all involved, not to mention everybody else around you and every environment that you're in your workplace, in your home, in your out in public. And that's a whole nother probably ball of wax. But with this work, you have to really understand this stuff, because when you understand this stuff and you really start practicing it and you really start doing this work of understanding everybody's role and how to get everybody to function well together, just like if you were a CEO, or just like if you became king, or just became queen, or just became a mom, you have to get in this groove of understanding how everybody works together and then managing everybody so that the functioning is high and not just this survival mode, because that's what we're all usually used to, is just this mode of survival. And where we're just surviving, it doesn't really feel good. Life doesn't feel good. So I'm hoping that when I talk about these things, you have an understanding of what pieces get put together in order to really live this life at a higher level, higher than you could have ever imagined and better than you could have ever imagined, and having what you want, manifesting beautiful dreams and beautiful lives and having health and well-being and vitality and just feeling good and not just this constant like I'm just surviving and I'm just keeping my head above water. That's what I used to do. I used to just think to myself, okay, like, how can I possibly get a workout in today when I've got 12 hours of work to do? I've got 10 calls. I've got a pile of emails. I've got laundry to do, dinner to make. And it's just this constant, right? Like, that's just surviving. That's not functioning at a higher level. That's not living life, really. And so, if we want to get to this place where it feels better, like you're more at ease, you have to understand these parts and pieces that go together and impact your world that either get you down a road of going in a better place or get you, or if you're not doing those things, you're stuck in this hamster wheel, right? And so I hope that the understanding is very clear that there's a higher self, there's a mind, body, soul. They all function together as a little unit to create the bigger purpose in your life, having a more easeful, enjoyable, peaceful, not forced life. So let me know what you guys think about that. Reach out to me, make comments where this is posted, and let me know what you think and what questions you have. I hope this helped. Okay, bye till next time.